Guess what time of year it is? Guess what time of year it is? Wearable blanket season. It's wearable blanket season. And I'm Abby with Motor City Nerds. And we're going to talk about the AHSOKA series. Now, I haven't watched all of the animated stuff. I'm like halfway through. So this is coming from somebody who, I love Star Wars. Mom and I just watched all the movies in order. Loved doing that. But it's not my thing that I know like the back of my hand, like Game of Thrones, but I do love it and I do enjoy it. So this is more of like a review of the entire series as a whole. So forgive me if I don't know every little thing, but if you're new here, I'm Abby with Motor City Nerds. Hi to all the new subscribers. We're on our way to 2,000. We're small, but we're awesome. And if you could like the video or dislike the video or leave a comment, it really, really, really does help out a lot, especially when you're little and tiny. It means a whole lot and it's free. But yeah, we're going to talk about this from a story, more of just like a film aspect than every little thing. And I'm sure there's a billion other people out there that know Star Wars a bunch, like Multiverse of Geekdom, who's had me on before. They're awesome people. They're awesome. They're so nice. The Jedi Council is so fun. Every time they let me on, I appreciate it because I always think I don't know what I'm talking about. But I feel like I bring something different to it because I'm looking at it from the storytelling aspect more than a, oh my God, I'm ride or die for some of these things, which I am with lots of stuff. And I do want them to do it correctly. I just am saying, like, I'm looking at this more of, was this a good show? Was this a bad show? Was the storytelling good? So that up front before I get into things, okay? I don't want people to go like, oh, you didn't know that a mark on a rock meant this. And it's like, no, I know most things, but I just don't know every little thing is what I'm trying to say. So don't beat me up too bad. Okay, so let's get into this. I find your lack of faith disturbing on. We're ready to go. I really loved the way this started. I thought the show as a whole was very well done. And to come from me and my mom was all in on this. She loved it from the jump. She's a Trekkie. She's not a Star Wars person. She loves Star Wars. Like I said, we just rewatched all of them. And I think that really helped her because it really helped hit home the Anakin stuff too. And we'll get into that. But she was all in on this. She absolutely loved it from the jump. I loved it from the jump. And I did learn, and I've watched some. I was really excited for Thrawn. Hannibal Lecter is my favorite character of all time. I love Tywin Lannister, so I love a smart strategy smarty. So I was real geeked. And then if you notice, the guy who plays Thrawn, he also plays Hannibal Lecter in the series. There you go. So I was really geeked to see that character. From the beginning, though, I thought that this did a very good job of bringing in an audience, even if you don't know every little Star Wars thing, just like The Mandalorian did, but did a lot with the huge fans who are going to go, oh, I see this, I see that, I see this, because there were some things that I saw and was like, oh my God, that's from whatever. But like I said, this isn't my ride or die. I love it, but it's not my like, oh man, I'm gonna fight over this. And I got mad respect for Star Wars fans because at least they'll tell you they're fighting with you, even if you're agreeing. You know what I'm saying? They'll be like, I don't agree with you, or I do agree with you, but I'm going to argue with you about it anyway. But I can respect that because some fandoms, like the Game of Thrones one, are just snooty McSnoot passive aggressives, and I'd rather have somebody say they're arguing with me than just going like, well. But yeah, I thought this had a ton of stuff in it that was for new people, for people that knew everything, and in between. And me and my mom are proof of that. And we really loved it. And from the jump, we got to know these characters if you didn't meet them before. I really liked them. The only ones that we had an issue with was Sabine kind of BSing her friend and not being very forthright, but okay, whatever. And also, I stand by this, from the very beginning of The Mandalorian, that armorer is somebody. That armorer is someone. From the jump, she's like, I know what Jedi are, I know what this are, I know what that are, and my friend was saying he thinks Sabine might be her daughter. I might be saying something sacrilegious and crazy there by saying that. But I loved being introduced to these characters. I loved everything about that. I thought it was really good. The only episode I thought messed up the pacing a bit was the third one, when she was jumping around in space outside the ship. And the whole time I'm going, Mom, I think this is a much bigger deal if we knew every in and out. And then I ended up finding out, yes, that was totally the case. But I thought that was kind of drawn out a bit, but that's not a knock against it. That's me nitpicking of going like, that's the only episode I thought was a little sluggish. But other than that, I thought they all moved very well. I loved Baylan. I think that's a great character. And from the very beginning, I was like, this guy isn't, I don't know every little thing about Sith and that, but I was like, he's not really in it because of what he believes. He's in it over greed, it almost sounds like in the beginning, but then we end up finding out it goes way past that. I was like, his apprentice, she has a braid like a Jedi Padawan. So obviously you haven't fully turned, and I'd like to see where that goes. My buddy Roach over at Medical Mondays podcast, if you want to check that out, he made a really good point. And I asked him to come on and explain it, but he is thinking that maybe Baylan wasn't Anakin's apprentice, but might have been Darth Vader's, or tried to be Vader's apprentice. And I was like, oh, that would be interesting. And rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. That was a great character. From all these characters' entrances, especially his, how easily, it was like Voldemort, like how easily he's like, yeah, no, I'm walking right through here. Let's go. Let's do this. The introduction of everybody and everything was flawlessly done and was awesome and was so cool. And you got to know all of these characters, whether you knew them already or you're new to the series. And that's hard to do. That's really, really hard to do. So I applaud it for that. This is more of me going from a film standpoint. Did it have any flaws or anything like that? And some stuff was a little off to me, but I know that could just be the lore that I don't fully understand. But I thought that the way they handled Anakin and Ahsoka talking, oh my God, and that imagery, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. The imagery they showed going back in time and going through the Clone Wars, and then her getting a little bit old, like the way they did that with just like the slight changing of ages and the slight changing of costumes through it and having to face yourself was really, really cool. And not just cool, very well done. The flashes and then it being the Vader silhouette. Oh my gosh, that was perfect storytelling. That was so good. But then again, Dave Filoni does this, who really loves this, really cares, and sticks to the lore and the stories, and it shows. It really does. And I've complained about this with Marvel, where I think that Kevin Feige does love this. He does, obviously. But the problem is, I think that he needs to find his Dave Filoni. Just like how George Lucas found him, that's what Kevin Feige needs at Marvel. He needs to stick to the movies, and he needs to find somebody he trusts to hold on to the shows and the spin-offs, because it's wearing too thin. It's becoming, you can tell it's too much, and things aren't coming out as good as they were, and it's a problem. But I feel like if they tag team it, kind of like what the DCEU is doing with James Gunn, which is smart, and I'm not going to get into that right now, it lessens the workload. Anybody knows that. If you go to work and you have more than one person working on something, instead of putting it all on one person, normally it's going to be more efficient. They just need to find somebody they trust at Marvel. And Dave Filoni, George Lucas found the guy, you know, and it shows in everything he touches in the Star Wars universe. So in the first episode, introduction of Ahsoka, everything like that, they made it easy to understand. They made the map easy to understand. It wasn't too complicated. Loved all that, because you're introducing a lot here, and that's hard to do. But loved all that. Loved seeing some of her signature moves. Like I said, I've seen most of it, but not everything. So I do know things. So I loved seeing some of her signature moves. Rosario Dawson is a goddess amongst us, and she's great. Visually, this looked stunning. Stunning. It looked absolutely beautiful. I get that it was I can't speak more highly about how visually stunning this was. When we saw the masked guy with the double blade, I was like, don't do nothing stupid. Everybody kept saying Maul was going to come. I was like, if they do that, that's dumb. I was worried that guy was going to be Ezra. And I was like, that's kind of something Star Wars has done a few times, or a lot of things do, where all of a sudden we take off the mask and it's, oh my gosh, it was my friend. So I was so glad they didn't do that. That I was happy about. But I loved the lightsaber battles. I loved all that. Her getting the map and then getting introduced again to Sabine and all of them. And you get to know that character. She doesn't show up to the big celebration. She's kind of not for it. And she feels a certain kind of way. Love that. And I love that they reiterate these people were going through this very young and still are, and went through this struggle very young and still are. Thought that was awesome. But we knew the vibe. We knew her. She's a rebellious one. I was saying she gives off Mad Aries vibes. Sabine does. But the whole scene towards the end when she cuts off her hair and puts her Mandalorian stuff on, that gave me chills. That was beautiful. That was wonderful. That was so good. Loved it. Loved it. And I felt like they could have struggled with maybe making each episode too focused on one character, and they didn't do that. There were a couple times I was worried about that, and they didn't. And when I say these things, I'm nitpicking, okay? Because it was great. I felt like the world, just like with The Mandalorian, looked more lived in, and I really liked that. Let's get to the big stuff. Let's get to the big stuff that even basic Star Wars fan like me really, really, really loved, was finally getting off this red planet. And you want to know what? I'm going to say this. This is how you organically put women in things. This is how you organically do that. And people can say, do you want to know who says this dumb stuff? Is people who don't understand how the art form of like film or writing works. Because there's a difference between, I say it all the time, there's a difference between pandering and shoehorning and organically doing something. If you don't like it because there's ladies, maybe, and you're just jumping on the bandwagon because somebody made a TikTok that goes, oh, there's too many ladies and it's woke. Maybe you're just dumb because I felt like this was organic. These characters already existed. And I thought it was really, really cool seeing this many badass ladies, including Elsbeth and all them on screen. That was awesome. And I felt like it wasn't shoehorned. I felt like it organically happened. And that's what you want. You don't want it to be like, oh, let me just shove all these ladies at you. Let me just shove all these people of color at you. You don't want that, because then you're telling people that they're stupid and they don't know that you're pandering to them. I didn't feel that way with this. I thought they did nods to the older characters, the original characters, like having C-3PO was awesome, just enough to be like, oh yeah, and then go back. Dropping Leia's name, that was awesome, that was cool, but I just want to get that out of the way real quick. To anybody going like, oh, they just did this because they wanted ladies in it. No, it didn't feel that way, and it wasn't wrote that way, and I don't believe that. I don't. And if it was, I would say that, because I would say you're trying to make me feel like I'm stupid and going, here's a lady, stupid little baby. Aren't you happy now? And I didn't feel that way. But after episode 3, and after we get off the red planet and all that stuff with all the trees, and everything was beautiful, like I said, but after we get through all that, and after we get the Anakin episode, which I thought was really well done and really cool, and it wasn't too much, and I thought it could come off heavy-handed, and it didn't, and we start going with the whales to where Thrawn's at, oh my god, that was all so cool. That was all so cool, so awesome, and this is the one time I've been watching a show on Disney Plus where I didn't feel like it ended super quickly. I felt like they really used the time they had for these episodes, and it didn't cut us short. To get halfway through a series and find out, like, Baylan has his own thing going on that he hasn't even told his apprentice about. We don't really know what that is yet. Then we have Ahsoka doing her thing and trying to get there. Then we have Sabine looking for Ezra. Now, here's my one issue with that. Me and my mom were like, you're really not being honest with this Ezra. You should really be more honest with your friend. You should have really been more forthright about that nonsense. And that really bothered us. But other than that, I was like, okay. And I do like Ezra. He's a cool character. But on top of the storyline of let's go get Ezra and let's go get Thrawn and let's stop him and all this stuff, the layering in of the characters with Ahsoka and Sabine and all that it was masterfully done, I thought. And you felt for these characters. That's what you want to happen. And I use this as an example all the time is I love Boardwalk Empire. I thought Boardwalk Empire was very, very good. But I could have cared less besides about, like, what? The brother and Chalky White, if they would have gotten murked, I would have been sad. But other than that, you could have blown anybody away at any point. I would have been like, okay, whatever. But when you watch Sopranos, you're like, I don't want nothing to happen to Tony. I don't want nothing to happen to his family. I don't want, you know what I mean? And that matters when you're watching something, when you really care about the characters in it. And this did a good job of making me care. But when we first get to the planet where Thrawn's at, and they show all those stormtroopers with everything tied together with their makeshift armor, and they're chanting his name, I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is so cool. This is sick. This is awesome. Like, I cannot speak of more of how cool that is, how cool it looked, how cool Thrawn was, how awesome everything was here for all of that. When he looked shook, when he found out that Anakin was her master, oh my god. And like I said, the acting was great. Everything was great. It looked great. I was loving all of that. But I will say that opening showing the stormtroopers chanting Thrawn was probably the coolest shot in the entire series. That was awesome. But yeah, we have Sabine finally getting out there and meeting up with Ezra, and then we have Baylan and Haiti, is that her name? Chasing after them. I loved that too, because I was like, why would you let her go? And then I was like, oh, because you're going to let them chase her. But if you notice, Baylan goes, listen, in their empire, do X, Y, and Z. I thought he was going to sacrifice himself. I thought he was going to die before the end because he didn't want her to get hurt. So he's like, blame this on me, blame this fumble on me. But really, he was going off to do his own thing. But if you notice the way he talks to her, she doesn't know, and I think he's keeping her in the dark to keep her safe because he knows she's going to end up with this regime with Thrawn, and he doesn't want anything bad to happen to her. Little things like when they're like, you need to kill Ahsoka, and he's like, no, I'm not sad about it, but it just sucks because there's not that many of us left. Like, he does feel a certain kind of way. So I think he's the most interesting character we've gotten. And this is what I mean. I didn't even finish all of the animated series, but I still got hit in the heart when Ezra and Sabine met back up. I was still like, Sabine, you need to be a little more honest with your friends here. You need to be a little more forthcoming. But I did like all that. I thought that was fine. But I did think those parts kind of dilly-dallied just a little bit. But I felt like this series as a whole had like the Star Wars humor in it, because it is for kids and stuff, but it had enough of that in it, but enough like seriousness. And it balanced that really well. And there was almost an entire episode without Ahsoka in it, which is shocking to do with your main character as the title name, you know what I mean? And the acting is so well done because even if you haven't seen those things, it really gets across. Like when she tells Ezra, she took me on as her apprentice, and he's like, oh, okay. Like, we know that's really, they did the acting very well because we know as an audience, even if you haven't seen it, like, whoa, that's a big deal. I never thought that would happen type thing. And I did think, because of how the last trilogy was, this might suffer from tropes and saying things. Like I said, I thought that guy was going to rip off his mask and it was going to be Ezra. Then I was like, oh, great. They're all going to get off the planet. And then they didn't. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. We're doing something. We're not just doing the basic, easy way out here. We're doing stuff. I thought the jump was a little crazy, but I don't know every little Force lore. So don't get too angry with me. But I thought that was a little much. I felt like the last 2 episodes were as good as a film, though. And visually and storytelling and all of that, it was great. Her Ahsoka's fight with Elspeth, I thought that was really awesome. I liked that they didn't get to Thrawn, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to get to Thrawn, And like I was just saying, they could have done all that. They could have had her get to Thrawn. They could have got off the planet, but they didn't. And so I really like that. And that says, hey, we're not just going to take the easy way out with this storytelling, and I'm here for that. the droid telling them to stick together, and then they don't, but then that doesn't just end there. I know it's a little on the nose in that episode when he first does it, when they're running through the plan and they get the map, but later on, even in the series, in the last episode, they don't go alone. Sabine goes back, Ezra sticks, they all stick together. I thought the most badass moment was Ahsoka being like, I'm gonna go through the front door, and it's like, yes, that is so cool, I love that. And them going through that, I thought was really awesome. Bringing up the dead was kind of crazy. I don't know where that falls in the Star Wars lore, but I thought that was really awesome. It made it feel different. It made it feel different from other things, and I really, really liked it. But I could see where people would be upset that we didn't get to Thrawn and we didn't do this and we didn't. But from a film watching standpoint, I think they took way more ballsy chances. I really do. And I do know that owl's a big deal. I know that owl's a big deal at the end. That's like part of the Force from somebody that brought Ahsoka back from the dead, right? It's like her guide or something. It like looks out for her, so she knows like I'm in the right spot. But when we get that last shot of her looking up and then we see Anakin, oh my god, it was so cute. It was so sweet. I love that. Like, you're exactly where you're meant to be. That's what's going on. It's almost like Luke on Dagobah when he thinks he's stuck, and they are kind of stuck, but there's a lesson that needs to be learned here. I really did, and like I said, I know this is short, I know I'm not going into a ton of detail, but I thought this was really well done. I thought this was great storytelling. I thought this was great for the Star Wars universe. I don't know other people's, if people might hate this, I don't know, I didn't look anything up. I'm just saying I really loved it a lot. I really, really did, and I thought they did a really good job with it, and I thought they could have taken easy ways out, and they didn't, and my mom loved it, and we really loved seeing these badass ladies and it not feeling shoehorned or pandery. I really, really liked it. But tell me what you guys think. Do you think that Baylan might have been not Anakin's, but Darth Vader's apprentice, or tried to be? Because that's Roach's theory, not mine. And then I was saying, I think that either Sabine or somebody is related to the Armorer in The Mandalorian, or the Armorer is somebody. Because the way she talks about immediately, the Mandalorian, go back and watch that first season. The second he shows up with Grogu, she's like, oh, it's a Jedi, and it's this, and it's that. And it's like, okay, well, if this is this group that you guys haven't been messing with for a long time, and only certain people know about, or certain Mandalorians know about it, how come you're like, bing, bang, boom, I know everything about it? You know what I'm saying? And if it was an enemy in the past, how come you're not acting like it's an enemy now? Which makes me think you either know, were with, or are somebody important, or was with the Jedi. Or is Sabine your kid? Is Sabine your kid, and that's why you have more tolerance and care about and know about the Jedi, because you're like, well, my daughter's one. And I like that they didn't make Sabine automatically like, oh, I'm cool with the Force now. And it was more like she was relying on her Mandalorian side, and she needs to accept that Jedi side more. And I'm assuming we're going to get into that into season 2. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. I'm Abby with Motor City Nerds. Tell me what you thought about Ahsoka. I'm on OF, I'm on TikTok, I'm on all the things down below. I have a bunch of reviews up. I got a bunch of things I need to do tonight. But yeah, tell me what you thought about Ahsoka, and am I totally wrong in everything that I'm saying? And like I said, I know I'm coming at it from more of a film standpoint than I am a Star Wars fan standpoint, but I'm still a very big fan of this stuff. I'm waiting on the Jabba the Hutt mob show spinoff. I've been fighting for that. If it comes out, you heard it here first. I've been screaming from the rooftops for years, where I'm like, I need a Sopranos-esque Jabba the Hutt show. That's what I need, Disney Plus. And I'm just saying. And then they started talking about that game, and I was like, I've been talking about this for years. And I need the show. I need the show.